In honor of Black History Month, which should be celebrated every month, this is the Black Icon Spotlight on the 7-Day Theory. Today, the spotlight is on the man, the myth, the legend, Akhenaten. We're going to talk about him. We're going to break it down. 7-Day. Hit that notification bell. Hit that subscribe button. We got memberships now, $1.99 a month. Let's go.
You tuned in to the 7-Day Theory. Hard body, hard spirit.
What up, my people? You tuned into the 7-Day Theory. Hard body, hard spirit. Check this. The Black Icon Spotlight. The man, the myth, the legend, Akhenaten. Akhenaten, and the things I learned, the things I study, the things I took from his life and his accomplishments and applied it to my own are many and great. Look, this man not only changed the world in his time, during his reign as Pharaoh, during his life, right? He even changed the world today when he was rediscovered, when his tomb and his idea, his religion, his thoughts were rediscovered. His image, and look, the image of Akhenaten, he got a very unique look. He's got a very powerful look, very mysterious, right? And this was a black man. There were many black pharaohs. If y'all don't know, newsflash, spoiler alert, 7-Day, you heard it here first. Egypt is a part of Africa. A lot of people, right, because today, right now, in Egypt, it's majority Arab race, right? And over time, obviously, Egypt has been invaded. It's been conquered by foreign races, by foreigners. But back in ancient Egypt, the majority of people were black people. And Akhenaten is a black pharaoh. We could tell from his image, his features. Also, we could tell by the statues they made of his son. The statue was painted black, representing the color he was, the race he was. His mother also, she got a beautiful queen, Queen Ta. We have her bust. She was painted brown, dark brown skin, all right, because that's what these people were. They were black people. America and the world as a whole has an infatuation and a problem with making ancient Egypt and Egypt like it's not a part of Africa. They like to speak on it like it's not a part of Africa. It is. Okay? During his reign, during the reign of Akhenaten, he changed the religion, he changed the politics, he changed the the art, and he changed the way pharaohs were looked at and depicted. One of the things I learned from Akhenaten, one of the greatest mottos in life, and something that Akhenaten himself lived by, was called living in Ma'at. Something the ancient Egyptians and Akhenaten called living in Ma'at. Ma'at means truth in English. Living in truth. And this is what I base my whole life around, right? It's not just a saying, it's a way of life. I'm in recovery. I have to present myself, my 100% self to the world, my actual, authentic, true self to the world. If I don't, I could fall into relapse. So this was Akhenaten's goal in life, and I believed he obtained it. He didn't let the world change him. He changed the world, right? And this is a difficult thing to do. Being born in this world, a lot of things that happen to us from other people and just how the world is as a whole, the world can definitely change us in the negative way, right? It could change us for the positive, but a lot of times people live their whole lives and base their whole lives on what other people think, on what other people say, or what other people's opinions might be of them. They live their whole life based on that, based on what other people might say or think or do to them. I argue that at that point you're just a creative player. Other people's opinions of you do not matter. The only opinion of you that matters is yours and God's. That's it. That's all. Other people's opinions of you have no bearing on who you really are, your true self. And Akhenaten was a king at this. He could put on a master class on how to be an individual. One historian called him the first individual in history, right? Because he changed the world so much and did not let the world change him. For thousands of years, hundreds of years, ancient Egypt worshipped multiple gods, plural. They worshipped many, many gods. Akhenaten turned that on his head, did a complete 180. He said, no, y'all worshiping many gods? No, I know that there's one God. His name is Aten, and he is the one true God. He is the creator God. He creates everything. He breathes life into everything on this world, from the plant life to the animal life to humans. He gives us life. And Akhenaten has a strong connection to the Bible, a few connections to the Bible. For one, monotheism, the first monotheist in history. This is the first person we have archaeological proof of that believed in one God. The first person, even though we have the Bible, we have the Quran, the Torah. These are books. These are religious books. They are not, even though they're supposed to be based in fact, they are not archaeological proof of a belief in one God. But we do have archaeological evidence and proof that Akhenaten was the first person in history to be a monotheist, to make monotheism his religion. And this is one of the hardest things to do. Everybody knows that when you're discussing something with other people, the most touchiest subjects are politics and religion. And not only just talking about it, right? Akhenaten converted people, changed the religion of ancient Egypt as a whole. And this was a daring feat. I believe this is one of the greatest feats in human history. To take all those years, right? And right after his reign, they went right back to worshiping many gods. But during his time, his reign, he converted people to the belief in monotheism, in the belief of one God. And during his time, right before, in Akhenaten's time, the most popular, the most worshipped god was Amun. Amun was, by and large, the most popular god back in ancient Egypt in this time. The 14th century. Akhenaten reigned from 1353 BC to 1333 BC. That was his reign. He died at 36, or around 36 years of age. Not a long life, right? But in that lifetime, in that short lifetime, he did what many people it won't do if they make it to 80. He changed the world so much in ancient Egypt, so much that he changed it not only in his time, but in our time when he was discovered, when his writings, when his statues, when his religion was discovered. He changed the world again in our time. And Akhenaten, he was King Tut's dad, King Tut's father. He was, if y'all know the famous king, famous pharaoh, they call him the boy pharaoh because he was so young when he stepped on the throne. And his tomb was, because of the nature of grave robbers and looters, right? They would go into they would find their shrines, right? Their burial sites and their temples where they were buried, and because they had all their riches, right? All their gold, everything that they wanted to take with them to the afterlife, they had it there in their temples, in their cemetery, in their shrine to the pharaoh. It would be laced with gold, laced with tons and tons of gold. So looters would steal that gold. King Tut's tomb was damn near untouched, and that's why I believe that he's so popular today, is because we got to see exactly what they were buried with and how it looked, because it was so much intact. of King Tut's tomb. He was also Nefertiti's husband. He treated Nefertiti like the queen that she was. Beautiful, beautiful young queen. She has a famous bust statue of her, and a lot of people like to put her side profile on shirts, on gold charms. This is a popular image that's been around for years and years. Queen Nefertiti. She was pretty much a co-king or a co-queen in Akhenaten's reign. He was the high priest of Aten, right? He was the high priest of Aten. So was Nefertiti. He also had 3 other daughters. King Tut was his only son, supposedly his only son. And Akhenaten, he has a few connections to the Bible, and I argue he is the historical real Moses. And I don't think it's no coincidence that Moses in the Exodus happened just 100 years before the reign of Akhenaten. I don't think that's no coincidence. And look, he changed the art, the religion, the politics. He changed the way pharaohs were depicted. Pharaohs would depict themselves as strong, smiting their enemies. Akhenaten, although he does have a depiction of that early in his reign. This is why I love Akhenaten so much. He depicted, because I'm a father, and I believe that there's no greater title to a man than father, and I believe there's no greater title to a woman than mother. I believe it's the hardest but most rewarding job and the most important job any human being can do. And he depicted, which other pharaohs did not do this, he depicted in his reliefs, in his wall reliefs, he depicted family life. He depicted of him sitting on his throne, Nefertiti on her throne, holding their kids, hugging their kids, kissing their kids, just showing love as a family, right? And this was not depicted. This was not normal. It was unusual. The way Akhenaten looked was unusual. He had a feminine and masculine look at the same time. His body, he had what looks like could be breasts. He had curves, right? He had curves like a woman. And I believe he was depicting this, what he was trying to, even though, like I said, a lot, they tried to erase Akhenaten from the history books. Didn't try, they did. They have an official king's list that we discovered in ancient Egypt. Akhenaten is nowhere on that list at all. They completely tried to erase him. Luckily, he got rediscovered. But if it wasn't for that, no one would know of Akhenaten, because that's how much hate and that's how much they despised Akhenaten for changing his religion, right? And I believe he was playing with his statues, and the way he was depicted as feminine and masculine. I think he was playing with the ideas that God is both feminine and masculine, because we know God is not a he or a she. It's a being. God is a being. And I believe God he's able to create men and women. So I believe God as a being is feminine and masculine. And we all have both of those in ourselves, every human being. It just depends on to what degree. So I believe he was trying to depict that in his statues, that look, God is both of these things. Amun, the most popular god of his era. Akhenaten, because of his monotheism, because of his belief in one God, the Aten, which his god was called, he had his people go all around Egypt and cross out and get rid of all the words, the hieroglyphs that said gods, plural, because his religion, there was no gods. There was only one creator being and one true God. And this is why it has connections to the Bible, is because, for one, I believe he's the historical real Moses. For two, they discovered a tomb of a foreigner. He had Jewish features. He was a Jewish man. His mummy was well intact. He almost looks like he's alive if you look at the pictures of his face. His title, when they found Yuya's tomb, he had his title, which he had many. One of them was father to the Pharaoh. Joseph, I believe Yuya is the real historical Joseph. And I don't think it's any coincidence that Yuya, who I believe is Joseph, if y'all don't know in the Bible, he got, his brothers were jealous of him. They sold him into slavery. He ended up in a jail in Egypt. They told his father, they acted like that he passed away. They dipped his coat in blood and gave it to his father and said, oh, an animal attacked him. But really, they sold him into slavery. He ended up in a jail in Egypt, and the gift God gave him was the ability to read and interpret dreams. And he would do this so much. He was such a likable character, such a likable person that the guards in the prison, they loved Yuya. They loved Joseph. And he actually would run the daily operations in that jail. And so he would interpret their dreams. And at some point, the Pharaoh at that time, he had a dream that no one could interpret. No magicians, no prophets, no priests. Nobody could interpret this dream. It was a dream of ancient Egypt will have 7 years of feast and 7 years of famine, where they won't grow hardly anything. The guard said, hey, they heard that Pharaoh was having this dream. They say, hey, we got this guy. He's got a gift from God. He can interpret dreams. So they took Joseph to the Pharaoh. He interpreted his dreams. Said, look, we got to stock up. What your dream means is that Egypt will have 7 years of famine and 7 years of feast. We got to stockpile. We got to save some food for those 7 years of famine. And people from all around Egypt and Egypt itself, in those 7 years, they came to Egypt and to the Pharaoh, and he would ration out portions, and other countries and other people from other places could buy the food, because they were they were going through the famine as well. So because he interpreted that dream for the Pharaoh made him his right hand man, his visor. Yuya also has the title visor. In the Bible, Joseph is called father to the Pharaoh. I don't believe that's a coincidence. Yuya, the tomb that they discovered, the father to the Pharaoh, he was Akhenaten's grandfather. So Joseph, potentially, I believe, is really Akhenaten's grandfather. He was Queen Tia's father, Akhenaten's grandfather. Joseph is one of the patriarchs of Judaism, of the Old Testament. I don't think it's any coincidence that he could be the historical Moses, and he has connections to the man that could potentially be or was Joseph in the Bible. And these are the people that started the belief in one God in the Bible. These are some of the first people that pushed and adopted this religion. And Akhenaten is the first that we have proof of. Just like Moses, Akhenaten was obviously raised in the palace, in the royal palace. So was Moses. Moses led his people to the desert to escape slavery, to start this new religion. 40 years in the desert. What did Akhenaten do? When he got into power, he changed not only his name. He was born Amenhotep IV, which was not done. People did not change their name. Pharaohs did not change their name at all. Akhenaten was the first and only to do this. He changed his name to Akhenaten like 3 or 4 years into his reign. But he not only changed his name, he changed the capital of ancient Egypt, which was Memphis at the time, to Akhenaten, which what he called it. In present day we call it Amarna. And there was no buildings, no temples, no nothing. His God inspired Akhenaten to move the capital here, to build from scratch his temples, his houses at this place in the desert. Just like Moses went to the desert and they were there they wandered in the desert for 40 years. That'd be like if Akhenaten changing the capital. That'd be like if the sitting president was like, you know what, Washington, D.C., nah, I'm not feeling that. Let's make Cleveland, Ohio, the capital of America. Right? That's what that would be like. Or the president changing his name to And Akhenaten's name means he who rejoices in the Aten, or he who is beholden of the Aten. That's what it translates to. And so that'd be like a president saying, you know what, I don't want my name to be Donald Trump. I want it to be he who loves Jesus, right? That's what that would be like. Akhenaten, just like Christianity, and I would argue Christianity even has more idols, right? Because we have Jesus as God, as an idol, as a person. Even though God is supposed to not have any image, we have this image of a person, which is Jesus, that we worship. Akhenaten, just like Judaism, and just like the Old Testament, there was no idol worship. The ancient Egyptians they had little statuettes they prayed to. They loved to worship all these other gods. There was no image of Akhenaten's God. The only image of his God and what he was worshiping wasn't just the sun, right? And that was the image. The image of his God was a sun with rays, and on the end of those rays were hands. And sometimes those hands, and most times those hands, would hold a ankh, which is the symbol for life. And this ankh and this hand would be extending, and it would be pointed to the nose of Akhenaten, of his kids, of Nefertiti, showing that his God breathes life into them. Not only him, the animals, the plants. Also another connection, the long and short hymns to the Aten that Akhenaten himself probably wrote have a real similarity to one of the hymns in Psalms. Very similar. He talks, Akhenaten's hymn talks about how God breathes life into that the animals and birds chirp in the morning when the sun sets, because their God gives them warmth, life. He breathes life into plant life. He knew that the sun, depending on where you're at in the earth, the sun creates different languages, creates different people. Akhenaten wrote this down and knew this way back in the 14th century. BC. That's another connection to the Bible. And Akhenaten himself was an individual first. He was just straight out an individual. The art he changed. Not only the way pharaohs were depicted, but like the family life, but also the style in which he was depicted. You can tell the difference when you look at other depictions of art in ancient Egypt. It looks totally different from the art in Akhenaten's time. Akhenaten was a revolutionary, and he is by far my favorite revolutionary, my favorite person to study. Even now today, because of how he's depicted in statues, the LGBT community, they latched on to his image because he represented, or he looked like something that they feel inside, right? As far as with trans people, with LGBT people, right? Because he was depicted as feminine and masculine at the same time, they latched on to Akhenaten's image. Books, hundreds of books were written about him. I've been studying Akhenaten for years. So ever since I discovered Akhenaten, I've been studying him. Read multiple books on him, documentaries, YouTube videos. These things, I study this man, and the gems and way of thinking was so different. Like, he had thousands of years to compete against the hatred towards Akhenaten from the priest of Amun. Amun was the most popular god of his time. He shut down all the temples, and like I said, got rid of all the word gods. And that's why they hated Akhenaten. That's why they erased him from the history books, because they wanted to worship many gods. They were stuck in their ways. That's what they wanted to do. Akhenaten was way, way, way ahead of his time. Way ahead of his time. The priests of Amun were very rich, very powerful. So Akhenaten shut down their temples and abolished their power, abolished their money, right? They were very rich and very powerful, And Akhenaten got rid of that, and that's why they hated him so much. And his family also had the elongated heads, and I think that has to do with something about trying to depict maybe even, and he might actually have an elongated head. That might not have just been a depiction, because in all the depictions and all the statues and reliefs that's supposed to look like exactly what the person looked like, his daughters, for example, they have the elongated heads. I think this is either a sign of they are kind of chosen people or different, or have some type of lineage or some type of connection to God. I think that's what that is, or what that depicts, that elongated head. Some people say it's because he might have been an alien hybrid or something like that. That's all also been speculated on. And when they found Akhenaten's tomb, it was his face piece is half hacked off. It looked like somebody hit it with something like an axe or something like that. They tried to abolish any memory or any evidence that Akhenaten ever lived. And I believe it's because they were so stuck in their ways, because he took away that power. When they found Akhenaten's tomb, his face piece was half of it hacked off. It looked like somebody took an axe and just smashed it, right? They tried to destroy and get rid of any memory or thought of Akhenaten. That's how much they hated him. But his worship of the Aten, it wasn't just sun worship. It was the energy behind the sun, right? The creator being behind the sun or within the sun. It wasn't just straight up a simple, oh, the sun is a god, right? No, his religion, his belief was that there is a soul, an energy within the sun that gives life to everything on this earth. Y'all let me know in the comments what y'all think of Akhenaten. Have you heard of Akhenaten? Do you follow Akhenaten? Do you think he's the first monotheist? Do you think that he is the historical Moses? Is this y'all first time hearing about Akhenaten? Let me know. Like, comment, share, subscribe. We got memberships now, $1.99 a month. You get custom loyalty badges made by me, custom emojis made by me, and member shout outs at the end of videos. Keep your head up and your eyes open. I'm out.
You're now listening to the 7-Day Theory. Hard body, hard soul, hard.